and let us all do we can to build a better future.
We got to address this, especially with the left. Well, somewhat horrible situation the left is in. And even I'm having a hard time trying to figure it out because I don't even know what it means anymore. There was a time where I thought that the progressive movement had an idea, what we were going to do. But all in all, it seems to be heading towards complete disaster and failure, especially when it's quote unquote former leaders or self-appointed leaders think they know more than the rest of us. And I think it's quite clear what I expect out of all of you, my audience. You need to come to your own conclusions. When you watch this show, it's important for you to be aware of all the people doing various different shows, but to also come up to your own conclusions and make you do your own research too. That's what I expect out of all of you, whether you like this show or not, whether you are subscribed to us or first time checking us out. I expect all of you to make your own decisions. And unfortunately, in this battle of egos, battle of pride, Fat Tony, I mean Cenk Uygur, still has Jimmy Dore living rent-free in his head. That's pretty sad. But also, I mean, again, it has to deal with more of just the fact that forcing the vote and also trying to promote Marianne Williamson as the next big thing, not acknowledging the election fraud that took place during the Democratic primaries of 2016 and 2020. It seems that Cenk Uygur is just stuck in his own reality of trying to make himself relevant. And even when confronted with facts and information, his pride and ego won't step aside. So what am I talking about? Let me just first bring up this video here. We saw this. Briahna Joy Gray, Cenk Uygur, talking about, well, first, I fast forwarded where Cenk was talking about his book, Justice is Coming. Like, look, that's a terrible name for a book, but whatever. It is what it is. I want to play this video. Let's check it out. Let's see this unhinged, immature man who was at one point, I guess, a relevant talking head for independent media and now is, well, a sad husk of what he used to be.
Bit more recently, I'm sure you're aware there was some controversy among the left because podcast host and comedian Jimmy Dore recently made a sort of argument like this to Cornel West, arguing that
her first mistake bringing up Jimmy, because now we all know Jimmy lives rent-free in Cenk's head.
He was overemphasizing resistance to white supremacy, at least in his rhetoric, if not in his campaign. And he was pushing him to focus more exclusively on economic issues. How do you see that trade-off? And do you think that there needs to be a kind of hierarchy of things like economics over racial or social issues, or in the case of the argument that Jimmy Dore was making, a focus on COVID and being anti-mandate and anti-moratorium over something like the fight against white supremacy?
Now, look, here's the thing. Looking back at that interview again, where Jimmy was bringing up these suggestions to Dr. Cornel West, I mean, there's something that needs to be addressed when it comes down to identity politics. And look, it is important. It is important to deal with various issues that groups have to deal with in this country. Okay, there is injustice, but the way this pathway right now is happening in this country, especially with this election, the one thing that's going to supersede anyone's identity or issues, and they are important, it's going to be about survival and money and resisting mandates or being told what to do by institutions that effectively abandoned us, okay? Now, we're going to witness Cenk's meltdown here, and I'm going to keep my pausing to a minimum here because this is going to be sad to watch, but it's important to witness this because, again, he's going to be twisting himself upside down, left, right, putting his head all the way up his own wazoo. But the real issues at hand is, again, the economy, being free and independent, speaking out, and survival. Look, I make this joke on the show. It costs $300 to go outside, but let's face it. For some in this country, while it may not be that high, to fill a tank of gas or get food, just to walk outside, just to get the necessities you need to survive, that joke of mine is starting to become a little bit more real now. And it is a real thing. And it shouldn't be this way. We all should be able to live peaceably. And yes, break down the barriers that divide us. But Cenk's going to go a little bit Unhinged. Witness a man melt down, which he kind of looks like because that's terrible lighting on his face.
Yeah. So this gets super nuanced. So let me walk through all of it as quickly as I can. First, the number one problem with Jimmy Dore's approach is he goes and mainly agrees with the right wing on social issues and then says, oh, like I'm not going to agree that the vaccine doesn't work. Sorry, I'm not going to agree to things that aren't true. I'm not going to agree that the election was stolen. I'm not saying that Jimmy's saying that. I have lost track of what the crazy ramblings in his head or what he says out loud. But he keeps trying to bring the left over to the right wing. That's not how you do it. You say, look, it's not that you guys are moving your position or that we're moving our position. It's just that we're finding common ground in the places where we agree. Both of us can take yes for an answer, but you should not sheep herd your audience to the right wing. That is not at all productive. Now, in terms of hierarchies, like I said earlier, you don't need a hierarchy. Why do we have to debate and vote on, is this social issue more important or is this economic issue more important?
Unfortunately, look, I understand social issues are important, but we got to read the room. It's going to be about dollars. We're all human beings at the end of the day. All right. Remove our skin color. We're all red. We all bleed the same color. And it's all about the money. It's all about the dollars. When you go to the store, when you go to fill up gas in your car, when you walk outside, you could see it on people's faces. I mean, it's there. Everybody sees it. I don't care where you stand on the political spectrum or who you worship. At least when I go outside, what I'm witnessing is, yeah, people are scared, not because of identity, but it's because of, gee, do I have enough money to get by tomorrow? It's going to be the economy. It's going to be about the dollars. It's going to be about survival because we're animals at the end of the day. It is what it is. Now, look, I understand each of you might have your own opinion on this. And you know what? Each of us have to come to our own conclusions. But I think we all are worried about, do I have enough in my hip back pocket to get through today? I see it all the time, and I know you see it too. It's going to be about the dollars. I wish it wasn't, but it is. It's going to be about the dollars. The economy is not doing well. And I'm seeing stories and I'm hearing stuff and I'm seeing the stuff on social media. It's there right in front of us. And we can't ignore it.
It's not that hard to do both. It's not. So when they pass laws against trans people, gay people, etc., in these states, when they pass the law saying we shouldn't teach real African-American history in Florida, you could fight back against that. And at the same time, hey, Republicans, you know that 3/4 of you agree with us on paid family leave. We'll take yes for an answer. Come on, let's go do paid family leave together. Let's make sure that moms and dads have 12 weeks off after they deliver a baby. And so there's no reason in the world you can't do both. And once you get into hierarchies and prioritizing, that starts internal wars. Oh, you think class is more important than race? Oh, you think race is more important than class? And then all your
Jimmy wasn't saying that. And also, Jimmy sheep herding his audience to the right or being Trump. No, I've never seen Jimmy Dore do that. Jimmy Dore is not endorsing Trump. I mean, come on. You could tell Jimmy's living rent-free in this man's head. But no. Now, again, I have done stories about the election and where things are going. And let's face it, in comparison to rallying and uplifting and inspiring your voters, Biden and the Democrats ain't doing jack. Hell, they sent Bernie to cuck Sanders to New Hampshire, and that didn't do anything. Biden's trailing Trump, and it's pretty sad and pathetic, folks.
are doing is fighting when you cannot win on economic issues unless you unite against the establishment. They're the ones that are actually in charge.
Speaking of sheep herding, there are some who are over the idea of working within the Democratic Party who see the obstacles to actually winning as insurmountable after Bernie Sanders, who was better positioned than probably any candidate the left is going to have in generations, was thwarted the way he was thwarted by the Democratic Party. And now people are seeing the way the DNC is ostensibly rigging the election in various ways, not having any debate.
Now, hold on. This is where he's going to go full Marianne, bro. Okay. Now, look. Look, if you're a Democratic voter, and let's say you're a Marianne Williamson supporter, right? Because I think RFK Jr. is fine. He's finally seeing the light. But let me be clear here. For anyone who thinks you could reform the Democratic Party, I'm so sorry. Look, Santa Claus isn't real. He's been taken out. That damn Sasquatch had to get a job. Leprechauns, well, they're not real. And the Tooth Fairy, well, if you look up the original legend, it's just a monster. But look, none of those things are real, right? You cannot fix something that's inherently broke. Okay, it's a fantasy. The DNC rigs primaries. Okay, they did it in 2016 and 2020. Marianne Williamson can't do jack. Okay, she would have done herself a favor if she ran independent. Okay, it's just the truth of it. I'm so sorry.
It's saying that there will be no primary, changing the order of the primary contest, et cetera, in a way that makes it very difficult for insurgent candidates like Marianne Williamson and RFK Jr. to advance in the polls. As a consequence of all of that, many people on the left are saying, I'm over participating in the Democratic Party entirely, are looking to third-party campaigns like Dr. Cornel West's campaign, and see those who would want folks to participate in any kind of electoral contest within the Democratic Party as doing exactly that, as sheep herding, especially when some of the people who might encourage one to vote for a Democrat ultimately in 2020 or 2016 and probably in 2024 are going to say at the end of the day, you should vote to defeat Trump and vote for the Democrat, even if they don't reflect the progressive values that you've said, and I agree, are so popular. What do you make of that argument?
So I think that rationality dictates that you have to understand the distinction between primaries and general elections. So the establishment says you shouldn't have primaries, especially on the Democratic side. You should just bow your head. Whoever's in charge, they get to dictate who should be the leader. And you progressives are rascals. You're so unruly. You must obey, right?
Yes, no, he's going to be critical of the Democrats, but then he's going to tell us, oh, man, Marianne Williamson's the best choice. Brace yourself for the stupidity. Clowns are real. I'm looking at one right here.
If you listen to that, you're nuts. That is them totally brainwashing you. There should be a massive primary against Joe Biden. Poll out today, 72% of Americans think that he is not mentally capable of running again, that he's too old. 72%. And the lunatics in the Democratic Party and the lunatics in Washington go, yeah, we should run a guy that 72% of the country doesn't think could be president against Donald Trump. They say this is the most important election of our lifetimes, but let's run an addled, wounded antelope against this demagogue fascist. How does that?
Now, on the PBD podcast, he did say if it came down to Trump versus Biden, he'd vote for Biden, just like how he told us to vote for Biden in 2020, just like how he told us to vote for Hill Dog in 2016. I'm waiting for the general election because I know the Democrats are going to be stupid. They might actually go all the way and have Biden in. And this man, boy, I paused at the wrong time. Look at his face. This man, I'm going to put it to my watch, right? This man is going to tell us to vote for Biden. Trust me on it. He's going to do it. He's going to be like, we got to stop Trump.
That makes sense. That doesn't make any sense at all. There's just their lust and their greed for power is unbearable. So that's the primaries. And in the primaries, Marianne is, at this point, clearly the best candidate. It's not even close, okay? But as you see there's one thing I wanted to quickly correct, because in my opinion, I don't think the Democratic Party has much power at all. So they set...
They do. They're the ones who dictate how the primary will play out. Even if, because hang on, we get to Marianne. Brace yourself for stupidity.
The debates, they set this, they set that. I understand that, but they don't rig votes. They just set all the context. And I hate the rules that they set, and I think they're deeply corrupt. But that's not the number one problem. The number one problem is media. If Marianne Williamson got the same amount of respect and coverage in the media as Joe Biden did, Donald Trump, Vivek Ramaswamy gets, then Marianne would be in a real contest with Joe Biden. But the media freezes her out, shames anyone who supports. Oh, she's not serious. Like you.
But she ain't. She ain't. It's a glorified book tour. She's gone through not one, but 3 campaign managers. One of them, most notably, Peter Dow, who probably, like, I'll give him credit. Probably goes, oh, geez, this lady's nuts, because she has many mental issues, such as being very brutal to her staff and advisors. And, getting on the ballot. That's just a mythical thing. You know, I mean, Here's the one thing where I can agree. Oh no, I know. I'm going to say this. Where I agree with corporate media. Like, why are we covering this nobody? Because she is a nobody, Cenk. Don't make that face at me, baby.
Morons are serious. You ruined this country. But yes, when you get to a general election and somebody's sitting at 3%, and the other two guys are sitting at 40%, well, brothers and sisters, I love you, but there is a reality that you are, in fact, taking a vote that would be against Donald Trump, and you're putting it in a category that is not going to win, and you all know that. I'm not saying
He's telling us not to vote third party, brothers and sisters. Just for that disrespect, I will vote independent and third party. Now, again, I'm not too impressed with the campaign manager for Dr. West, but that's a story for another day. We'll see where that campaign goes. Don't want to get off topic. But look, Trump derangement syndrome. Trump lives rent-free in Cenk's head. Jimmy lives rent-free in Cenk's head. I know, it's so insane.
today. I'm saying if you get to election day, and the polling still shows that, and don't give me this crap about, I don't believe in polling. I think 3% could magically turn into 51%. But if on that day, your candidate's definitely not going to win, why would you help Trump? Why
help Trump? It's all about Trump! Trump! Sorry, I don't mean to yell too loud, but look. Donald Trump's not the problem, and I'm not afraid of Trump, okay? I don't care if he gets reelected. All right? I don't care. I don't care. Like on election night, you know what I'm going to do? I will vote third party. I will vote independent. I will take a photo and live rent-free and vote blue no matter whose head because I'm on my anti-hero arc. And then I'm going to do a live stream covering election night. And I'm going to make a nice ribeye steak, and all of you can join me. We can make a meal of it together, and we could watch and feast on the liberals' fears, okay? Now, maybe Trump wins, or, hey, Biden wins. Everyone will be at the edge of their seat, but me, I'll be drinking, smoking, and eating in absolute peace and bliss because I'm at peace with this, as should you be.
Why would you help him?
Well,
it just makes no rational sense to me.
Let me ask you this, Cenk. Why would the Democratic Party ever stop? You don't want to characterize it as rigging.
Now, again, he's going to talk more about election fraud or how it doesn't exist. Now, here's the thing. What you don't know is Fat Tony and his fantastic crew actually did a documentary on election fraud that took place in California. So I want to fast forward here now, where we witnessed the meltdown, literally and figuratively, of Fat Tony. So let's pull up this video here, where, again, force the vote is brought up and so much more. This is going to be sad to watch.
As long as you agree with us.
Cenk, I have to offer some, I think, pushback there. One on two fronts. One, I do think that you're accurately describing a psychological phenomenon where if people are getting a lot of criticism and pushback, some of which they perceive to be bad faith, there is an inclination to spend more time with people who have been nicer. I'm not saying that's a moral choice, but it is an obvious psychological outcome. And does that mean that people within the left community should perhaps extend more grace to each other so that that doesn't actually happen? And the second, I would just want to ask you about, similar accusations, I feel I would be remiss not to bring up that have been made about your network, Young Turks, about the $20 million of Katzenberg money that some people have argued changed.
Ooh. Remember the Katzenberg cash? Katzenberg still has a board seat at TYT. Just letting you lovelies know. I think we all remember when TYT took that Katzenberg cash. I remember. The God Emperor of Mankind remembers. Petridge Farm remembers. And the Magician of Atlanta remembers. If you got the reference for the Magician from Atlanta, I love you. Shout out to my Futurama people.
Change the direction of TYT's coverage in a more liberal and less left direction.
Yeah. Okay, so I'll take it one at a time. Should people show each other more grace on the left? Absolutely. At the same time, you notice a phenomenon. It's okay to point it out. So it's okay for us to point out what Jimmy does with his videos. It's super obvious. It's one thing to criticize the Democratic Party. As you can tell from this interview, I do it very regularly and very forcefully. It's another thing to say the Republicans are okay. The Republicans are not okay. The Republicans are a disaster. The Republicans are much worse than the Democrats. Okay, now on to the second issue. Yeah, so then people go and look around and they go, okay, well, oh, the Young Turks got 20 million investment. Okay, now here's the things people don't know. People say Katzenberg was involved, no question. The amount he has is near microscopic. And so, and by the way, we pay the money back. So I be honest, that's breaking.
That was $24 million you got. So I'm still a little bit curious how they paid it back, but okay, fine. Let's say they did. Let's have democracy in the chat. Type 1 if you believe that. Type 2. Nah, there's something else a little shady here. It ain't the first time Cenk pulled the rug under our feet. Hey, whatever happened to that $2 million that you raised for your 4 horsemen? I remember that. Remember? It was Jordan Cheriton, Talcum X, Naomi Kant, and I forget who the fourth guy was. Michael Tracy, I think, or Tracy Michael. However, which one? Again, there were 4. There were 4 horsemen. That never came into fruition. I remember that, and I think you remember that too.
Breaking news. We've never told anyone that, but we did. So that has no influence on us. But most importantly, Briahna, people just make up that we went.
Thank you. Yes. Sean King and Michael Tracy, Naomi Kant, and Jordan Cheriton, the 4 horsemen. People funded at $2 million. 2
was the right way, or went towards the moderate Democrats. I mean, they call me like those that the lunatic fringe that follow Jimmy say we're establishment shills. They haven't watched 1 minute of the show. I mean, look at what the things I said to you before this question, right? Does it look like a 1% pro-establishment? But
you're going to tell us to vote for Biden. I'm just waiting for it, baby. Don't worry, Cenk.
They will see that and go, aha, knew it. He's for Hillary Clinton. Well,
But you did. You told us to vote for her. You also said earlier, hey, vote Democrat because you shouldn't vote independent because it's going to help Trump. Hey, look, folks, when you watch this show, Hard Lens Media, I'm going to tell you this. Vote however you like. I know we got liberals who watch this show. You're probably more trolly than anyone else I've ever had. But, hey, some of you do like us. Some of you don't. Okay, whatever. I know we got Trump supporters and Republicans and libertarians who watch this show. We got Greens, socialists, independents. Vote however which way you want. I'm not going to tell you how to vote, okay? Just remember, these politicians are all jagoffs, okay? That's the one thing that's a fact. You can't debate me on that one. That is truthful. And number 2, if you're a non-voter, like you don't want to vote, that's fine. I will ask you to consider this one option. If you live in a citizen ballot initiative state, find out if you do live in one and vote for the citizen ballot initiatives, the good ones, and stand against the bad ones, okay? That's all I'll ask. You don't have to do it, but just consider it. You don't have to vote for any other politician. Go in, do that one thing, give a middle finger, and walk out. Enjoy the rest of your day. And then watch Hard Lens Media on election night while we have some nice ribeye steaks, because that's what I'm going to cook.
Can't help you if you're not dealing with facts and logic. You can't show anything where we're in favor of Hillary Clinton.
Well,
no one fights harder in the primaries against corporate Democrats than TYT does, Young Turks does, and I do. I formed the Justice Democrats to fight.
Yes, the Justice Democrats that fired its staffers, that also is having some financial problems, and also kicked you out, Cenk. That's nothing to be proud of. I would not have said that on air. I mean, you formed the Justice Democrats, and then they kicked you out, and then that ship is sinking. That's not a good thing to be boastful of, baby.
Fight against corporate Democrats, and we defeated them. There's nothing more practical and more real than what I did there in that instance.
I mean, Cenk, I think specifically one of the moments that I remember of TYT being characterized as no longer capturing the spirit of the Justice Democrats or what the Justice Democrats were supposed to do was the moment around Force the Vote, where there was a push for the elected squad members to take an adversarial relationship to the Democratic Party and Nancy Pelosi specifically, to withhold their votes for them the same way that we've now seen the Freedom Caucus model with withholding their votes for Kevin McCarthy at the beginning of this year, really testing the theory of how that would work and getting in return a number of concessions that I think we can all acknowledge would be amazing for the left to have achieved. And at that time, despite there being a poll that TYT put out of its audience, where a majority of the TYT audience seemed to support Force the Vote, the newscasters, the personalities on the show were very much against it. And as I'm sure you can remember, that caused.
To be clear here, Cenk was for it for one whole week, as was Sammy Boy Cedar. Then somebody gave him a phone call, or maybe Anna Banana got triggered. Because remember, this is the same time, too, where Anna did her "Me Too." All right, that's just wrong of me. But still, I mean, seriously, folks. Cenk, Uygur, and T were against it. I remember forced to vote. And yeah, it could have worked, but TYT and Cenk and everyone else decided to carry water for the DNC.
A significant rift down the left that
here's the meltdown
persists in many ways.
3.
What do you say to that? I see you shaking your head.
2, 1.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Crazy.
But thank you for bringing it up, because I'm happy to address it and try to clarify it the best I can. Guys, do I look like I don't want to force votes? Of course I do, right?
But you told us to keep our powder dry.
And I tell every congressperson that's going into Congress for the first time, if they'll listen to me, I tell them,
they don't listen to you. They don't even come on your show anymore, baby.
You have to create what the civil rights movement called good trouble.
Oh, boy.
Now, that doesn't mean you go in wildly and flailing around doing impractical things, but it means you come up with a coordinated strategy. You then create good trouble, and then you put a spotlight on an issue where you are on the winning end of it, popularity-wise. So, for example, one of the things we did with Justice Democrats is as soon as AOC...
Stop. Yeah, AOC doesn't show up on your show anymore. Justice Democrats isn't bringing in the dough anymore because people ain't wasting their time for it. Justice Democrats kicked you out, Cenk, for BS reasons. And look, I remember we did a show on it. Daniel and I, when we were on the radio, when we covered that, when that happened, we thought it was wrong. Okay. And it was stupid. And now again, let's be clear here. What Justice Democrats did was stupid, very stupid. And now they're firing staffers. They're not bringing in the dough. And AOC and the squad, are they really the heavyweights that we thought they were? Justice Democrats just became just Democrats, Cenk. Come on. Stop promoting this. Again, he's having a meltdown because he's thinking forced to vote Jimmy Dore. And here's the thing. Jimmy Dore was correct. But Jimmy Dore didn't come up with forced to vote. DSA did. He found DSA's playbook and was like, hey, gee, this seems like a good idea. Forced to vote. And let's be very clear about forced to vote. Was there a chance that the Democrats would have voted against it? Yes. But if the squad actually came together, 15 congressmen and women came together, they would be a strong voting bloc to really put a spotlight on the heartless Democratic and Republican politicians that would not give us health care at the height of a pandemic. It would have caused maybe a second wave, a pushback, a rise in support for progressive policies and movements. But no, what did AOC and the squad do? This is violence. We can't do this. We got to have Nancy, otherwise Kevin McCarthy be Speaker of the House. Ooh. Wait a minute. Who's Speaker of the House now? Kevin McCarthy. And the Freedom Caucus. They're actually proving that forced to vote does work. Oops, Fat Tony made a mistake.
We did a sit-in in Nancy Pelosi's office.
Oh, a sit-in. Yeah. How many sit-ins have you done afterwards? I don't know.
Put Green New Deal on the map. That put Sunrise Movement on the map. And in a lot of ways, it reinforced Justice Democrats being on the map. I want you to take those kind of actions. But you have to actually use your mind and independent judgment as to which action to take. So force a vote. Jimmy comes to me. Back then, we're still friends and allies. And I go, oh, look, it sounds like a pretty good idea. Okay, I definitely want to do something where we're forcing action, right? So what's your plan, Jimmy? He's like, well, we're going to force a vote, and we're going to get Medicare for all. I'm like, brother, I want Medicare.
That's not what happened, Cenk. You're rewriting history, baby.
For all. But you have to take steps. You have to take steps. If you go straight to Medicare for all, you have a 0% chance of it passing, and you're going to waste the power and the leverage. And who are you going to get as Speaker of the House? And he's like,
wasn't the argument.
That wasn't going to happen. Kevin McCarthy was not going to become Speaker of the House if the Democrats are going to be withholding their vote. Okay? That wasn't going to happen. We saw what happened when the Freedom Caucus was giving Kevin McCarthy a hell of a time. Again, I did a joint live stream with Farron way back when that was going on. We were covering it. Did Hakeem Jeffries become Speaker of the House? No. Kevin McCarthy still became Speaker of the House. Nancy, withholding your vote for Nancy wasn't going to prevent Nancy Pelosi from becoming Speaker of the House. No. This is so stupid. This was disproven, Cenk. Hell, Briahna Joy Gray had to educate Sammy Boy Cedar.
I don't know. That's your strategy? No,
Cenk.
I'm not going to agree with a moron who has no strategy, no plan, not at all practical. We could have forced the vote on $15 minimum wage, and we could have won that vote. But instead, the force the vote were like, yeah, well, you didn't do what I wanted. Okay, then I'm out. I'm not going to help you guys actually get the bills that we all want. Oh, come on, man. Grow up.
No, so Cenk, I would point out that Kevin McCarthy is still Speaker of the House. The issue was not whether or not Nancy Pelosi would necessarily become Speaker. The left, people
Briahna,
like yourself. Wait a minute.
Who is
Cenk,
going to replace Nancy Pelosi?
Cenk,
Did you guys have a candidate? Who?
Cenk, if I could, the right-wing caucus got a number of meaningful concessions. Regardless,
but that's not what we were going for, Briahna. That's exactly the problem. If they said, let's go for meaningful concessions, I would have been in. They said, we're going to get Medicare for all.
Cenk,
sure
with all
we
due
are.
respect, your characterization of what happened, I think, is reflective of the lack of grace and communication that was happening among the left at the time. And I think if people had been less motivated by their personal animosities against each other, it seemed that Jimmy Dore, you've expressed some animosity toward him several times during our short conversation here. I do think if those personal animosities weren't at play, maybe we could have been in a world where you were listening to myself, Crystal Ball, Kyle Kulinski, other figures on the Cornel West, Chris Hedges, who were also advocating for this and who were being very clear that there were any number of demands. I wrote an article in Current Affairs that set all of this out contemporaneous.
And this is how you know Cenk doesn't read or even listen to the news, because again, Briahna, you're a better person than me. I don't know how you have this infinite patience, but I can respect you. Seriously, she's a better person than me.
So you can go back and look that it wasn't this idea that we were going to hold the vote and magically get Medicare for all. And to the extent that that was your presumption
Briahna,
and your belief, I do think that is a real problem in communication on the left.
That you guys wanted at the time. Name one other concession. At the time, don't make it up now. At the time, name one other thing you guys want. I
invite you and the rest of the audience to go look at an article I wrote in the Current Affairs magazine in November of 2020, in which I consulted with David Sirota and included a list of subsequent ancillary demands that he had written up in his own publication. And I linked to them and say that these are also important. The important thing is that we need to demand something in exchange for our votes. But we don't need to rehash that. Go ahead. I'll give you the last.
Again, this is where he's triggered, because somewhere Cenk still has a shadow remain of a conscience where it's like, gee, Cenk, that would have been the right thing to do. And the squad, they haven't delivered. I've seen Cenk go on TYT occasionally here and there, talk about how the squad is failing, how the Democrats are failing. Cenk, baby, embrace the fact that the Democrats played you along and that the Katzenberg guy, the cashew guy who apparently you paid back the money. Okay. He's still at the council table. He's still on the board of directors for TYT. You'll never be free. You might have paid back the money, maybe, but you're never going to be free. The taint of the DNC is all over you.
I need to say one last thing, Briahna. I need to say one last thing. You guys make it sound like we're the ones who have animus. No, be clear about how this thing started. As I told you in the beginning, I said, well, that's interesting. Let's have a conversation about strategy. And the minute I said, let's have a conversation about strategy, Jimmy said that we were taking money from the CIA and Nancy Pelosi. You just mentioned David Sirota. He also attacked David Sirota. He also attacked Amy Goodman from Democracy Now! and insinuated she was working with the CIA. So then I thought, well, no, I'm not going to work with a lunatic who thinks that Amy Goodman might be working with the CIA. And second of all, I didn't start the fight. This lunatic comes in frothing at the mouth. I'm being funded by CIA and Nancy.
That's not what happened, Cenk. Oh, this is so sad to watch. This is very sad to watch. I used to respect this dude at one point. Sorry I ever did. And by the way, Cenk, who told you to wear a striped shirt while going live on air? You never do that. Who is advising you to wear that? You never do that. TV 101. Never wear a striped shirt, okay? Just trust me on it. Just listen to old Kit Kat on this one. No debate.
Listen, how are you supposed to have a rational conversation with an absolute lunatic like that? And then you guys think we started it? Are you insane?
I didn't say you started it. I don't care about the personalities. Cenk, you're talking about personalities. I'm talking about issues. All I know is that David Sirota supported Force the Vote. I had him on my podcast talking about it many times.
That's not true.
Yes, he did.
No,
and he
didn't.
continues to be an advocate that I value and respect a great deal. And he is as a mature person to tease away his personal feelings about human beings that he might share an idea with or a strategy with, and the underlying strategy. And I really do hope that we see more of that on the left and less of a focus on who it is that's delivering a certain kind of a message, especially if you're right, Cenk, and it's going to require a united and powerful independent media force in order to actually ever get a progressive into office. Thank you so much for joining us today and talking through some of these tough issues.
No problem. And you guys are funded by the CIA.
Again, here, this is childish. A man who has millions of subscribers on his YouTube channel. Final word of the day. That's what he gives. Again, immaturity. I'm going to give you my final thoughts.
But I'm sure you won't take offense at that. So just be cool. Be cool. Let's agree on policies. But you're obviously, Briahna had bought her house, has a Mercedes and a Rolls Royce, all funded by Hillary Clinton and the CIA. But it's cool.
Yeah. Immature fat Tony. All right. So what can we take away from that? First of all, look, force to vote was an opportunity missed by a lot of quote unquote leaders of the progressive movement. The 15 congressmen and women could have formed a joint coalition, but they didn't. They'll never take that initiative. The Democrats, the progressive Democrats, Justice Democrats, Brand New Congress, Our Revolution, DSA, Bernie Sanders, and everyone part of that coalition sold you a lie. They're not going to fight. The Democratic establishment is a private institution, and to be part of it, you have to follow their rules. You can put on an act, but you must follow orders. Cenk Uygur, unfortunately, ruined his reputation by siding with the Democrats, especially with the fear of Donald Trump. I am not afraid of Donald Trump. Yes, Donald Trump is one of the many bad guys in the world. Oogie, boogie, 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 boogie. But he is not the overall bad guy. There are politicians currently serving in Congress that are far more vile, far more corrupt, far more repugnant than Donald Trump ever will be. Okay, they've been in power for decades. Hell, Joe Biden is the architect, one of the many architects of this neoliberal nightmare that we are living in. The fact that this is somebody who is a quote unquote leader of the progressive movement, or a leader, there's a large media following, having its own personal meltdown, is because he knows he is wrong. And somewhere along the line, he ruined his own reputation. Now, I just want to bring up something else here too. I have noticed in my conversations about progressive policies and issues that I've been having more decent conversations with those who are libertarian or conservative. Now, I'm not changing their minds, but I'm at least getting the point of, I didn't see that perspective before, or I didn't know people on the left could talk like this. Because a lot of liberals and a lot of people who are suffering from Trump derangement syndrome, or who have built their careers in the aftermath of the Bernie Sanders campaigns of 2016 and 2020, seem to put themselves on a platform and then have Trump derangement syndrome and constantly wag their finger at those who think differently. When I have conversations with liberals or maybe progressives who are Democrat leaning, it's always been rather disheartening. I'm sorry. It's just that's my experience. I'm probably wrong on this, maybe I'm just talking just a select few. But when I look at my audience and all of you who are left, I'm hearing the same stories too, or either that many of you are disengaged with politics. We cannot let opinions or perceptions really drag us apart, okay? Force to vote was an opportunity lost. Voting for the Democrats is a fool's errand. Voting independent or third party is not going to help Trump. How can you spoil something that's already spoiled? How can someone steal a vote when your vote is yours and you can give it freely to whomever you want? That's something Cenk's going to have to learn. And I'm just looking at the watch right now on my little screen, and I'm counting down the minutes, the days of when Cenk will finally say on screen, guys, we got to vote Biden because Trump. Don't let people live rent-free in your head. And as a final note, Jimmy Dore was correct. But this was sad to watch a grown man melt down because Cenk, you could have done so much good, but you constantly keep on screwing yourself over. And stop promoting Justice Democrats. It's a failure. I am so sorry, Cenk. It's a failure. Force to vote. Force to vote would have worked. What a sight that would have been in 2021.